Ever feel like faith is just for the history books? Like all the big, amazing stories happened thousands of years ago? I used to think that too. But then I started hearing whispers, stories from people my age, Gen Z, about things that just can't be explained. Things that feel a lot like miracles. Let me tell you about Sarah. She's a college student, super smart, double majoring in computer science and philosophy. Last year, her dad got really sick. The doctors used a lot of complicated words, but the bottom line was grim. They gave him a few months, tops. The family was devastated. Sarah told me she'd never felt so helpless. She wasn't particularly religious, but one night, sitting by his hospital bed, she just broke down. She whispered, "God, if you're real, if you can hear me, please. I don't know what to do. Please, help my dad." It wasn't a fancy prayer, just a desperate cry from the heart. A few days later, her mom called, her voice trembling. "Sarah, you need to get to the hospital, now." Sarah's heart sank. She raced over, expecting the worst. When she got to his room, her dad was sitting up in bed, eating Jell-O and arguing with the nurse about the TV remote. The doctors were baffled. They ran every test again. The scans that were once filled with shadows were now clear. Completely clear. One of the top oncologists in the city looked at the charts, looked at her dad, and just shook his head, saying, "I've been doing this for 30 years. I have no medical explanation for this." Sarah's dad looked at her and said, "You know, the other night I had this dream. A man with the kindest eyes I've ever seen stood by my bed. He put his hand on my chest and said, 'It is not your time. Your daughter needs you.' And then I woke up and the pain was just gone." Then there's Leo. Leo was stuck. He was dealing with a heavy cloud of anxiety and depression that just wouldn't lift. He felt isolated, like he was screaming into a void, and no one could hear him. He'd tried therapy, medication, everything. Nothing seemed to cut through the fog. One evening, scrolling aimlessly on his phone, he stumbled upon an online church service. He almost swiped past it, but something made him stop and listen. The pastor was talking about how Jesus met people right where they were, in their mess, in their pain. He talked about a peace that surpasses all understanding. Leo was skeptical, but desperate. He closed his eyes and just said, "Jesus, if that's real, that peace, I need it. I can't do this on my own anymore." He told me it wasn't like a lightning bolt or a choir of angels. It was quieter, like a warm blanket being wrapped around his soul. The crushing weight on his chest started to feel lighter. It wasn't an instant cure, but it was a start. It was a glimmer of hope where there had been none. He found a local group of young believers who welcomed him, not with judgment, but with open arms. For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. He found a community. He found a purpose. These aren't isolated incidents. I'm hearing more and more stories like this. Stories of unexplained healing, of finding peace in the middle of chaos, of broken relationships being mended in ways that seemed impossible. It seems like a quiet awakening is happening. It's not loud or flashy. It's happening in hospital rooms, in college dorms, through late-night phone screens. It's a personal, profound encounter with a love that defies logic. Maybe miracles aren't just ancient stories. Maybe they're happening right now, all around us, especially among a generation that's been told to only trust what they can see and explain. Maybe Jesus is still meeting people right where they are, offering hope and healing to anyone who is brave enough to ask. What do you think? Have you seen or experienced something you just can't explain? I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Thanks you for watching.